Okay, welcome to FBB Forum. If you like this content, please be sure to like and subscribe. I'm very pleased to welcome the stunning IFBB Pro Women's Physique competitor, Melanie Horton. Melanie lives in Canada and just recently competed in the Legions Pro and the Atlantic Coast Pro shows. And also she competed back in the 1990s in women's bodybuilding as well. Welcome, Melanie. Thank you very much for being here.
Thanks, David. It's great to be on. I'm glad we're having a chance to do this today.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And I was thinking because you've gotten kind of famous with kind of going viral with your views, you might help boost the podcast viewership. So I really appreciate that.
Well, I've had a chance to see some of the other ladies that you've interviewed, and it's really nice to kind of get to know everybody's story. So thanks for doing this.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So I'll get started on questions. I was curious, wait, let me get my questions ready here. Do you have an athletic or sports background before you started in bodybuilding?
Yeah, I'd say I was. We were always encouraged growing up to be active and to pursue things we liked. So I've got three brothers. One of them's a professional golfer, actually, in
Really?
Calgary in Arizona. My
Wow.
youngest brother's kind of nationally ranked in squash. So we all have kind of very different interests, but
Wow.
certainly played. And I came from a very, very small high school, so I had an opportunity to play on the intervarsity basketball team, believe it or not.
Really?
And
Wow.
volleyball, yeah, and swimming and track were kind of mandatory at our school. So, and then in summers, just based on where I live, we did a lot of rowing and kayaking and canoeing. So yeah, pretty active. Nothing, super serious, but it's always part of my life.
Where in Canada did you grow up?
A place called Port Credit, which is just west of Toronto, right on Lake Ontario,
Oh,
on
really?
both of the Credit River. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's terrific. That's
Yeah.
great. Um, I was curious, how did you get started in bodybuilding and who convinced you to do your first contest?
Yeah, I think it was kind of by accident. I think a lot of people have this story. I had been weight training in a local gym, and there were a few bodybuilders in the gym, and one of them just kind of said, "Hey, you should try a competition." What? Well, what's that? So I tried it. I did my first competition. Actually, Rhonda Charisma, you may recognize that name. She was at
Yeah.
that gym at the time.
Oh, really?
Recently passed away, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I won the overall at that competition, and that was the beginning of a very long career.
That's great. When
Yeah,
did you first compete? What was your
a
first
long time ago. So that was 1994. Um,
1994? Yeah.
so I continued through the ranks here in Ontario, competed at North Americans a couple of times, and at our national championships in Canada. It was the case that you had to win the overall to get a pro card. So
Okay.
they gave out very few, and there was only bodybuilding at that time. So
Yeah.
it took me a couple tries. I was a lightweight for the first couple of years, moved up to middleweight at a whopping 121 pounds,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
and won the overall. So that earned me my pro status.
That's great. Did
Yeah.
you ever get like on ESPN? I remember back in the 90s that ESPN used to show the shows.
Actually, they did. The nationals where I turned pro here, it's called TSN, the Sports Network,
Hmm.
but they televised the event. So it was. I still have that. It's pretty amazing. Little memento to have.
That's terrific. That's so
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
Yeah. I wish ESPN would cover it again or CBS
yeah.
Sports or
Well, I guess
or
with the
something.
live streams now, there's good access at least for those who are interested to watch it. So
That's true. I liked how ESPN would kind of help bring about a wider audience, to and
yeah, they did good color
yeah.
commentary. I found too, so that's good.
Yeah, that's true. Um, I was curious, like, when did you feel your first kind of I belong here in the gym kind of moment? Because I think that, many people maybe feel intimidated by gyms, at least initially.
Yeah, it's funny. I was never really that way. Maybe it was from growing up with three brothers, but I was always very comfortable in the weight room, and was
Yeah,
fortunate that I had belonged to gyms that were very welcoming and inclusive. So never really felt out of place, and didn't wasn't bothered too much uh, by those sorts of things. So that's a good thing.
that's really good. That's great. Yeah. And that's so cool about your brothers too, that you guys all are involved in different sports and have some pros, and or you mentioned your brother being a pro golfer and stuff too.
Yeah, he's pretty heavily involved with the PGA. He teaches, mostly coaches, but he's been recognized for his coaching, which is great. We're very like-minded for sure.
That's terrific. Yeah. Um, Now I know that you competed in the 1990s, like we talked about, but then you came back again in the 2010s, and I was curious, like, why did you take such a long break from competing?
Yeah, I did. So when I turned pro, I did one pro show in '99 with the Women's Strength Extravaganza, and I was in bodybuilding. So that event, I was in between Laura Cruel and Betty Pariso, who you may know. So
Yeah.
again, being sort of smaller stature, it was a great experience. But I recognized that in bodybuilding, it would be very difficult to be competitive just by virtue of my size. So took quite a few years away. I still stayed involved in judging and was actually a promoter for many years.
Oh yeah.
And then when they introduced the women's physique division in 2013, that sort of planted the seed again to maybe try that, which I did. 2015, I think, was my first year back, and I've been going since then. So.
Wow, that's terrific. That's great that
Yeah.
you were still involved too between those periods of competing.
Yeah, so it's always been a part of my life in one way or another, one shape or form. And I love the women's physique division. I it's got a lot of the things I liked about bodybuilding, and obviously still have a lot of admiration for the women's bodybuilding division as well. But yeah, good.
That's terrific. And you've been doing open and masters, haven't you, or mostly masters?
Yeah, they didn't have as many masters when I started back.
Yeah.
But more recently, it's been great to see kind of proliferation of offerings for the masters categories. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I've been enjoying that, and obviously have a better chance to place better in the masters group. So it's good.
Yeah, and we talked about 2 Masters Olympia coming back. That's kind of amazing, and
yeah,
of course women's physique will be in there too. So that's some pretty amazing stuff.
Very exciting. Yeah, definitely gonna throw my name in for that.
That's great. I was going to talk a little bit about your family. And you have, how many kids do you have?
I've got 2. So I've got my daughter's 20 and our son's 18. So they're both at university. But yeah, they're great. So
that's great.
My greatest accomplishment.
That's terrific. What did they think about your fitness career? And are they supportive of it?
They're totally supportive, and they love the social media attention.
Oh yeah,
it's quite relevant for them. But
yeah,
my daughter was always competitive in dance. So she's we're different in a lot of ways, but she's been hugely supportive. And then my son was an athlete growing up, played high level hockey and baseball, and he's studying kinesiology. So he loves being in the weight room. He'll when he's home, he'll come to Pure Muscle and Fitness and train sometimes. So that's awesome. And he's following the sport, which is fun. So he's a big fan of the men's classic division.
Oh yeah, terrific.
Yeah, Chris Bumstead's a big idol for him.
I didn't realize until my daughter is 17 and like how many just teenage boys know about Chris Bumstead. It's like, and just in general, I didn't realize he was getting to be kind of a celebrity beyond bodybuilding,
Hugely popular. And his sister's, like, what a family. Melissa's incredibly gifted athlete too. So.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So you don't have grandkids yet, but
no, someday maybe.
Yeah, that'd be cool though. That'd be cool for in terms of having a cool muscle grandma kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I get on Instagram, I get called grandma a lot. And I always correct people. It's like, not yet.
Yeah, in due time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And are your parents still alive? And if so, what are their thoughts about your bodybuilding career?
Yeah, they are. And like I said, they were, I'm really fortunate. I had a very supportive upbringing, and our parents encouraged us just to pursue whatever we liked. My father just turned 90, and he was out a couple of weeks ago shoveling snow. So he's quite active. They live in the country, so they're still kind of relatively independent. My mom's 88. Wow. So I must have good good stock, good genetics there for age. So yeah, they're doing great. So no serious health issues, and hopefully we'll have them around for another 10 or 15 years.
That's terrific. Did they come to your shows? Are they supportive in that way?
They when it was on TSN, they watched it then, but yeah, they love to see the pictures, and they haven't been to anything recently, but yeah, they're very, very supportive. So
that's great.
yeah.
And you mentioned your brothers too. How about them? What do they think about your bodybuilding career? And did they get to come to the shows too?
Yeah, they haven't been to the shows. Actually, my youngest brother has been. He was there when I turned pro, but
Okay.
they follow it. Sort of follow my carryings on.
That's terrific.
Yeah, it's nice. It's I have to remind myself from time to time that it's a pretty exceptional situation for me having that kind of family support. Not
That's
everybody
great.
has that, right? Yeah.
I know. I've actually talked to a few folks whose family's not that supportive, so that's good to have the family support like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to ask you a few questions about prep, and I was curious, what is the toughest aspect of competition prep for you?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think for me, and I maybe just in the way I approach things, and I know there's other athletes like me, that the period leading up to a contest, certainly your nutrition's changing, and your training's changing, and you're adding more, posing and working on a routine.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm eating the same kinds of foods year round. I'm training year round. So that part of it, there isn't a noticeable difference during prep.
Mm-hmm.
I would say probably the biggest challenge is the cardio, but I've found good ways to make that enjoyable and not dread it like I used to 5 or 6 years ago.
Okay, sure.
So yeah, it's just time management, I think, is important, and yeah, trying to fit everything in. And then your mindset, like the mindset's pretty key.
Yeah, that's true. I would think one thing I've listened or talked to a few of the bodybuilder competitors about cardio, and like listening to a podcast like this seems to be like kind of a nice way to kind of get you through it,
Podcasts are great. I did a lot of just outdoor walking. We've got pretty good hilly areas around where I live.
Yeah.
So I looked forward to that. I miss it now because it's pretty cold here in Canada to be outside walking around, and I've been just getting over this cold, but yeah, in the spring and summer and fall, it was just I couldn't wait to either fasted or at the end of the day. And then I do bike mostly, which I enjoy too. So, but yeah, podcasts and YouTube keep you going, makes the time pass.
Yeah, definitely. Where in Ontario are you now? Are you still in Ontario?
Yep, just outside of Toronto, so northwest of Toronto, a place called Woodbridge.
Okay, very cool. I was curious, like, in terms of prep diet, just is kind of tough, I think. And what food item kind of lingers in your head, kind of waiting for the prep to end so you can try it again?
I think probably ice cream. I like sweet things, so
yeah.
I look forward to having ice cream after the show.
Ice cream's great. Yeah.
This year the prep was a little bit different because instead of calories continuously going down, I responded quite well and was ahead of schedule, if anything. So my calories were quite high the last 8 weeks or so, I'd say, of the prep. So that made things significantly easier to manage.
I understand. That's great.
Yeah.
Is it that it seems like the prep diet, there's just like the sameness of it would drive me a little bit crazy. Do you find that kind of monotonous?
Yeah, I know for some people, like I feel better and I have no issue with kind of the same boring, bland foods day after day.
Yeah.
I feel bad for foodies in prep that really like, sort of cuisine and that's not me. So.
Oh, okay. That's cool. That makes the life easier for you though.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was curious, do you have a prep coach now, and do you have a posing coach?
I do, and I think I was just going to say about coaching. It really depends on where you are in your career and what sort of things you need from a coach. There's lots of great coaches, and I've worked with great coaches over the years. Laura Benetti, I think I told you, is
Yeah.
was my first coach.
She's
But
terrific. Yeah.
the past 3 years, Jamie Pinder's been my coach.
Oh, yeah.
And
Okay.
and worked with a couple of posing coaches. But this season, Jody Bohm, I don't know if you know Jody.
Yes, I remember.
Jody's been to the Olympia many times, and she's in fitness. She's also done women's physique. But yeah, she's been fantastic. So yeah,
That's very cool.
yeah.
I was curious, since you have such a long career, can you give any advice on finding the right coach for aspiring pros?
Yeah, I think, like I say, it depends if you're just getting started versus sort of, high level amateur or pro or seasoned pro. There's all different stages where there are different things, and depending on the athlete, there's different things that are important to you. But I think with any coach athlete relationship, having the trust and the communication, those are sort of pillars of that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to be very loyal with my coach. It is, like I say, it is an important relationship. So
Yeah.
I've been working with Jamie for 3 years. Coach prior to that was 2 years, and so
Okay.
And yeah, I think definitely if somebody's looking for a coach, have that conversation. Know kind of what's important to you. Have that conversation with a couple people you're considering.
Okay.
And you just get a feel for what's a good fit.
That sounds
And
good.
if you have any concerns, like in the first month, immediately, find somebody that's a good fit. And I was lucky that I found that.
That's terrific. That's good advice. Yeah. Thank you. And are you a coach now, or have you been a coach in the past?
No, never been a coach or a trainer.
No.
Sort of self-taught in things like nutrition, and I work with Mike Van Wyck in the weight room. So he's responsible for my training. He's been a huge help.
Great.
But yeah, people always ask me to be a coach, and it's just that's not my skill set.
Okay, that's cool. I understand that. Yeah. I'm just curious, just because you had been doing it for so long, and that's cool that you've been asked because you have the experience and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you a few questions about competing, and
Sure.
and I was curious, like, where and when do you hope to compete again? And I just want to mention that I thought you looked great at Atlantic Coast and Legion's Pro this year. I thought you looked terrific.
Thank you. Yeah, I was, it's interesting. And one of the things that's been beneficial about working with Jamie in particular is, a lot of time you need expertise on nutrition or training or some aspect of the sport. But for me, I think the biggest barrier that I had to improving was in self-confidence and stage presence and posing. And so Jamie was really able to help with that. So this was a really good year in that respect.
Yeah.
And working with Mike, we made some great strides in training.
That's great.
Yeah. So I was really happy with the season, and looking to come back better next year.
That's terrific. Yeah. Do you have an idea for a show, or is it kind of early to say?
Definitely have, and if anybody follows me, that this is no surprise. I mean, the Masters Olympia is obviously the goal.
Yeah.
It'll be end of August in Romania. So that list won't be posted until August.
Yeah, that's true.
Would definitely love to do Daytona. They've added open women's physique.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It's an awesome event, and the Legions is also one of my favorites. So just kind of we'll look at the calendar more closely in a few weeks, and then make a plan.
That's great. Yeah, that's exciting about Masters Olympia. And being in Romania, I think could be kind of interesting.
Yes.
Kind of neat. Yeah. I was curious, what feedback are you getting from the judges in terms of where you need to improve your physique? So
the biggest feedback I had, two areas really. It's all posterior chain, so glutes, and at Atlantic Coast it was more back depth and width. So I'll continue to kind of work on those areas. Yeah, but that's been kind of the main feedback. I think the most rewarding thing this year was, out of both shows, there were positive comments from and feedback from judges on confidence and stage presence,
Oh,
which I've never
good.
had. I did that was very satisfying.
That's terrific. That's so
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Do you do you do you still kind of, even though you've competed for many years, kind of get um, intimidated being kind of in a bikini on stage, and do you get nervous for each show? What do you say?
So not, I think I'm over it, but
Yeah,
definitely 3, 4 years ago, even 2 years ago, this was a huge issue for me. So I
really?
had terrible stage anxiety.
Wow.
Yeah, it was. So it was, I mean, it was definitely holding me back, and
Yeah,
so worked through that, and yeah, really, like I say, really happy with the transformation in that area for sure.
that's terrific. That's so good. That's, and I bet your coaches have helped you in that regard. So that's great.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah.
Mm.
It was really nice that at Legion's Tanya Chartrand, who's a very good friend of mine.
Yeah,
She was there. We got to compete together, so it was a big highlight and very calming having her around. So that was nice.
that's great. A fellow Canadian too. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
she's awesome. Yeah.
yeah.
I was curious, what is your favorite muscle group, and what's your least favorite?
Legs is easily my favorite.
Yeah.
Least probably arms.
Oh, yeah.
I don't do a lot of direct arm training, but yeah, I
Huh.
like the bigger muscle groups. So legs for sure and back.
That's great. Yeah, your legs and back are really terrific. The arms are too, though. So yeah,
They're coming along.
yeah, you're doing a great job, I think.
Thank you.
Um, oh, you're welcome. Um, these last few questions are kind of more just miscellaneous, but I was curious, what would you do to improve the sport of bodybuilding if you were in a leadership role, and how would you make the sport better?
Um, I'm not sure about making it better, but I think just from my perspective and as somebody that competes in a lot of masters events,
Hmm.
I would really love to see the entry fees for masters pros done away with.
Yeah, I
I
understand.
think that's a challenge, and if you're competing in over 40 and over 50, you're paying quite a bit to participate in the events.
Hmm.
Obviously,
Yeah,
you don't pay in the open, so it'd be great if there was a way to. I don't know if it's through sponsorship or what it would be, but it can be a significant cost if you're
hmm,
doing multiple categories. So, would love to see that revisited and see if they can get rid of
that's a
those
good
fees.
idea.
Yeah,
How much do those fees usually cost, like for a show, or
they,
per division? I guess, yeah,
yeah,
per age division.
they range. It's anywhere between $200 and $300 per category, so it can
Wow.
add up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
In some cases, the promoter will pool the monies and then distribute it as part of the prize pool.
Hmm.
Um, and other events, it's just that's the rate, and it is what it is, right?
Yeah, I understand. And bodybuilding is already such an expensive sport. You're already
Yes,
putting out your own money, and not necessarily, even the prize money doesn't necessarily cover everything, that you put into it. So
exactly. So
yeah.
it's yeah, that added cost. Be nice not to have to pay that as a pro.
Yeah, I understand that. It would probably attract more masters competitors too, wouldn't it? I would imagine.
I think it might. I mean, I'm sure there are people who only do one category or maybe do less shows just because of that extra cost. I mean,
Hmm.
if it's an extra $200 or $400, that's a consideration for sure.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. Thank you. That's good to know. Um, if you don't mind me asking, just quick, how old are you?
On my birth certificate says born in '64, so
Aha.
makes me 58.
Okay, very cool. Because yeah, I've seen you in the 55 plus
Yes, yeah,
age division. Yeah, but that way you can enter, 35 plus, 45 plus if you
yep,
wanted to, but then that would add up with the fees too. So
yeah,
yeah, get
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
expensive.
yeah.
Um, I was curious, do you suffer from body dysmorphia? And if so, like, how do you cope with it?
I don't think I do really. I think to some extent that's probably true of anybody in this sport.
Hmm.
mostly because we're our own best or worst critics. So there's always something, always an area you see that can be improved. But I don't, not in the sense that term traditionally means. I don't think I suffer from that. No.
Okay. Yeah. I think maybe from just having so much experience with it too, maybe that,
Yeah.
and you're and also seeing it from the judging and promoter side too. So you just kind of grow older and wiser after time, so.
Yeah. And I mean, over the years, you get to become more accepting of off season versus contest, and
Yeah.
And realize that your standard is not kind of the general public norm of what you should look like. So.
Yeah, sure. I I I find that kind of fascinating with bodybuilding, and because you go through such a transformation from off season to being on stage, but I kind of like all the phases. I think it's all kind of fascinating to me. So as a fan,
Yeah, you have to learn to like them all.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's tough for some people, or especially early on. So I was curious, do you like to show off your muscles in public, or do you prefer to keep them covered? And I know you're in wintertime in Canada, so you might not show them off much now, but
It's pretty funny, David, like, because I mean, if you just had seen a picture of me, and I'll see this from comments. There's a perception that I'm much bigger than I actually am. So honestly, walking around kind of in regular clothes, just because of my stature, it's if I'm very lean, people may notice, but I'm not. I maybe I do, but I don't think I turn heads kind of in the grocery store on the street. So
sure, I
yeah,
understand.
and I kind of forget that I look like that. So
How tall are you?
I'm 5'2".
5'2". Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. Yeah, I was yeah, I was thinking, yeah, when you're leaner, and if you're doing like a summer show or and a fall show, you probably stand out more though with the
Yeah.
leanness. Yeah.
And I always seem to be with groups of people who stand out more. So, certainly when I first started, Laura Benetti and I became great friends, but Laura stands out, right? So
Yeah.
you're in the shadow of somebody that stand out more.
I remember when Laura appeared in a few of the afternoon talk shows.
Yes,
And
yeah.
and I think she just shocked people in the crowd because she was so big. And yeah, she's great. She's kind of legendary in the sport.
Yeah. And she always had and still has such a great mindset.
Yeah,
Very confident, and yeah, look up to her a lot for sure.
that's great. You still keep in touch with her, don't you?
I do. She's actually my daughter's godmother. So
Oh, that's so
yeah,
sweet. That's
yeah.
cool.
Her parents are from Toronto, so she's here
Oh yeah.
once or twice a year. Yeah, so we get together when she's in town, and yeah, and she's in Omaha. So I think the first show back, that was one of the reasons I picked the Omaha Pro to come back, because I was able to
Oh,
hang out with Laura.
that's terrific. Is
Yeah.
she was a promoter and a coach for a while, wasn't she? Or
We
is she
promoted
still?
together. She
Yeah.
still does coaching in Omaha, so I think she was judging for a while too
Okay.
with the Midwest NPC.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. I didn't know she was in Omaha.
Yeah.
It's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll have to maybe get her on the podcast too. I actually would be
Yeah.
interested in talking to some former bodybuilders like her
That's a great idea.
Yeah. Um, now this is getting into the social media that we had
Yeah.
talked about, and you had mentioned that some of your videos and social media posts went viral recently and have gotten like millions of views, which is pretty cool. I was wondering, now that you're also known as the world's most shredded mom, now how has social media played a role for you in promoting your bodybuilding career?
It's so funny to me. It's still to see those stats. Now, I will say, in the gym I'm at, there's a couple of really talented videographers and photographers. So Big Three Media, Laura Griffiths is that company, and then I for an I Media. So I've got access to great content with professional photographers, which is really nice. So
That's terrific.
I have no idea how these things got sort of picked up or into kind of mainstream the way they did. But
Yeah.
and I'm not, I don't know that it has any effect on my career, but what has affected me in the past month is just the comments. Now you get both. You get some negative, but not as many. But so many messages and comments that were, supportive, and people saying, "Oh, they're going to get back in the weight room." Now I think a lot because of my age, so people kind of see, wait a minute, I could do this too, maybe, right? So,
Yeah.
and they see that I'm pretty determined, so maybe encourages people to go after something they want to do. So that's been a really nice, unexpected side benefit of the social media, and
That's
I'm
great.
enjoying that for sure. Yeah, very humbling to think that you could have that impact on somebody being a relatively unknown person.
Yeah, I understand. That's terrific, and that's that you're inspiring folks like that too. I was curious, is it hard to keep up with? You probably get a lot of direct messages and comments on the posts. Is it hard to kind of keep track of that? Because you can never really keep up with all of that, I think. Sometimes.
Yeah, you got to be careful. I mean, it's as most people know, it's a slippery slope. I mean, it's easy to just get consumed by that and spend all your time. I have a business that's non-bodybuilding related that I'm trying to run too, and family. So I try to respect people's time and people that take the time to comment to get back to them. But it's you can't always get back to every message. So
it's got to be kind of overwhelming.
My best. Yeah.
Oh, sure, I understand, but yeah, and when did you kind of first go viral? Because it was kind of like an instant fame kind of thing.
Yeah, I think within the last probably 2 months ago, the one reel just sort of took off, and I was like, wow, this has had 100,000 views. That's shocking.
Yeah.
And then I got to 2.5 million. And it was like, okay, this is blowing my mind.
That's so cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, my kids think it's pretty cool.
I bet. Yeah, especially since they're 18 and 20.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they're in that world, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, my daughter is constantly on her phones.
Yeah, they all are.
Yeah, and I almost think that their brains are getting wired differently because they grew up on social media, and
I think you're right. Yeah, it's they definitely think differently. My daughter's always got she videotapes absolutely everything, but she's very savvy with media and social media, so I can get her help when I need it.
That's great. Yeah. Just sometimes figuring out how to use Instagram. It took me a while to figure out all the features and how it works. So it just takes a while.
Yeah, I started YouTube the beginning of January, more kind of just for my own fun. And so that's just had some training, but also had started a series called Strong Women. So actually the first one was with Tanya, and I was just training and talking, and a lot like what you do, but in the gym. And so that's great. I hope to kind of continue that in the new year.
Okay.
I'd like to get whoever happens to be in town. We've got a pro show here in June. So there's a few people I'd love to have on the series. Mona Porcelay, women's bodybuilding. She is hopefully going to be back in Toronto, so I reached out to her. Mindy O'Brien will probably come and do an episode with me, so it should be fun.
That's terrific. Yeah, I'm in touch.
Trying to convince Robin Mays. She won the Atlantic Coast. She's in Boston, so trying to convince her to come out and train for a couple of days. So hopefully get her here.
That's really terrific. That would be great. Yeah. I'm a friend with Alyssa Capolino, who hasn't competed in a few years, but I'm hoping that she'll come back to compete again this year and maybe do the Toronto. So that would be great.
Yeah.
I just have one more question for you. Is there anything that I should have asked you and neglected to that you'd like to bring up?
I think we covered a lot of good ground today.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm really glad to see you doing the series, and been a lot of fun watching the other guests you've had on and hearing about their stories. So keep it going.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. And I was wondering, could you do a quick flex for me?
Sure. I don't know if you can see, but there you go.
Wow, you look awesome.
Used to the
Yeah.
closed fist still, right?
Oh
Old
yeah, yeah.
habits, old habits.
Have to do it the open fist with the physique.
That's one
um,
of the things Jody's had to work. Jody Bones had to work with me. It's people always say you're posing like a bodybuilder. It's like
oh, I see. Yeah. I bet it would take
old,
a while to undo that with the
old
closed fist.
habits, right?
Yeah, that's true. But I want to thank you for being on the podcast, Melanie. And what I'll do is I'll include your Instagram and your coach's Instagrams too, and then I'll also include your YouTube channel down in
Great.
the commentary section or description down below. So,
Thank
um,
you.
but I really appreciate you coming on board, and
It's been fun.
thank you so much.
Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Take
Bye,
care.
David.